Not everything that starts your morning deserves access to your soul. Pause. Every single day before our feet touch the floor, something is already trying to drain us. Worry, fear, noise, pressure, people, or even our own thoughts. And if we don't choose what we allow into our spirit first thing in the morning, the world will choose for us. Today's prayer and today's message is about cutting off what drains you before it controls you. You cannot cut off what you refuse to acknowledge, and that truth alone is the reason so many people feel exhausted before the day has even begun. Many of us wake up tired not because our bodies lack rest, but because our minds and spirits are already carrying weight. Before we even leave the bed, our thoughts are racing. We replay conversations from yesterday, anticipate problems that haven't happened yet, and brace ourselves for stress we assume is coming. The exhaustion is emotional, not physical. And emotional exhaustion is far more dangerous because it quietly drains joy, motivation, and faith. For many people, the first thing they reach for in the morning is their phone. Within seconds, the mind is flooded with bad news, unanswered messages, financial pressure, comparison on social media, and reminders of responsibilities waiting to be handled. None of these things are evil on their own, but taken in too early, they begin to shape the tone of the entire day. The brain is not designed to absorb stress immediately upon waking. Research shows that cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone, spikes when we begin the day with negative or overwhelming stimuli. This means the moment you open your eyes, what you allow into your mind starts programming your emotional capacity for the next several hours. If stress enters first, peace has to fight for space. This is why so many people feel like they are always behind, always overwhelmed, and always running on empty. They never pause long enough to ask what is actually draining them. They assume exhaustion is normal. They assume anxiety is just part of life. They assume carrying everyone else's burdens is their responsibility. But exhaustion is often a signal, not a weakness. It is the soul asking for attention. What drains you is not always obvious. Sometimes it is loud and clear, like a toxic relationship or a job that constantly robs you of peace. Other times it is subtle, like a conversation that happened weeks ago but still replays in your mind every morning. Words spoken in anger have a way of echoing long after the moment has passed. They show up when things are quiet, when you are alone with your thoughts, when the day hasn't even started yet. That replay becomes a slow leak in your spirit, draining confidence and clarity without you realizing it. Fear of the future is another silent drain. Many people wake up already worried about what might happen later in the day, next month, or next year. Will I fail? Will I lose what I have? Will things ever get better? This kind of fear does not shout, it whispers. It disguises itself as responsibility, but it quietly steals peace. You can spend hours worrying about things you cannot control, and still feel unprepared when challenges come. Fear promises protection, but it delivers paralysis. Guilt from the past is another heavy burden people carry into the morning. Regret has a way of resurfacing when the world is quiet. Mistakes you wish you could undo, choices you wish you had made differently, opportunities you feel you missed. The past cannot be changed, yet many people relive it daily, allowing it to define their worth and limit their hope. Guilt drains because it keeps you focused on who you were instead of who you are becoming. It anchors you to moments God has already forgiven, healed, and released, but your mind refuses to let go. Overcommitment is one of the most socially accepted drains, and that makes it even more dangerous. Saying yes to everything feels productive, generous, and responsible, but it often comes at the cost of your own well-being. Many people are exhausted because they are constantly pouring into others who never pour back. They answer every call, solve every problem, and meet every expectation, yet they feel unseen and depleted. The issue is not kindness. The issue is lack of discernment. Not every demand deserves your energy, and not every request is an assignment. This is why identifying what drains you requires honesty. Not surface-level honesty, but deep, uncomfortable truth. It requires asking yourself questions you may have been avoiding. What thoughts do I wake up with most often? What situations make me feel heavy instead of hopeful? Who do I feel emotionally exhausted around? What responsibilities leave me drained instead of fulfilled? Until you name these things, they will continue to control your mornings and quietly shape your days. Even Jesus understood the importance of stepping away to renew his spirit. Scripture shows that he withdrew early in the morning to pray, often before anyone else was awake. This was not weakness. It was wisdom. He healed, taught, and carried the needs of many. Yet he did not allow constant giving to replace connection with God. He recognized that pouring out without being filled leads to burnout, even for the strongest. If Jesus needed solitude and prayer to restore his strength, how much more do we? Morning prayer begins with honesty, not perfection. It is not about saying the right words. It is about acknowledging the truth. It is about coming before God and saying, "This is what I am carrying. This is what is weighing on me. This is what is draining my spirit." Prayer creates space for awareness. In that space, you begin to see patterns you missed before. You notice how certain thoughts always steal your peace. You recognize how certain habits set the wrong tone for the day. You realize that some burdens were never yours to carry in the first place. When you ask, "God, show me what is draining me," you are inviting clarity. When you add, "and give me the courage to face it," you are inviting change. Awareness without action leads to frustration, but awareness with courage leads to freedom. Facing what drains you may mean setting boundaries, changing routines, letting go of unhealthy attachments, or surrendering control. None of these are easy, but all of them are necessary. Identifying what drains your spirit is not about blame or guilt. It is about stewardship. Your energy, peace, and attention are valuable, and how you use them matters. When you begin the day aware of what drains you, you are no longer a victim of it. You become intentional. You stop reacting automatically and start choosing wisely. And that choice, made early in the morning, has the power to transform not just your day, but your life. You don't wait until your house is on fire to install smoke alarms, and in the same way, you should not wait until stress overwhelms you, your patience runs out, or your spirit feels crushed before you decide to set boundaries. Boundaries are not emergency measures. They are preventative care for the soul. Morning prayer is where those boundaries are quietly but powerfully built, not out of frustration, not out of resentment, but out of intention. It is in the stillness of the morning that you decide what will and will not have access to you for the rest of the day. Many people misunderstand boundaries. They think boundaries are walls meant to shut people out, acts of selfishness, or signs of weakness. In reality, boundaries are gates. They allow what brings life to enter and keep what brings chaos from flooding in. Without boundaries, everything has equal access to you. Urgent requests, other people's emotions, unexpected problems, distractions, and demands. When everything has access, peace has no protection. That is why so many people feel emotionally invaded before noon. They never decided what their day would look like. They let everyone else decide for them. Think about the person who says yes to everything, yes to extra work even when they are already overwhelmed, yes to emotional labor for friends who never check on them, yes to late-night phone calls that steal rest, yes to obligations that leave no room to breathe. This person is often praised as reliable, strong, and dependable, yet privately they feel exhausted, resentful, and empty. They wonder why they are always tired despite being capable and hard-working. The issue is not lack of strength. The issue is lack of boundaries. Strength without boundaries becomes self-destruction. Morning prayer is the moment you reclaim authority over your day. Before emails arrive, before messages pile up, before expectations start knocking, you decide where your limits are. You acknowledge that your energy is finite and your attention is sacred. You remember that not every problem is yours to solve, and not every emotion around you belongs to you. This awareness alone begins to restore peace. Setting spiritual boundaries does not mean you stop caring about people. It means you stop allowing chaos to have unlimited access to your heart and mind. You can love deeply without carrying everything. You can serve faithfully without sacrificing your well-being. You can be present without being consumed. Boundary. Ease, allow love to flow without draining the source. Many people react to life instead of responding to it. Every notification demands attention. Every comment demands a response. Every problem demands immediate action. By the end of the day, they feel scattered and depleted, not because they did too much, but because they did everything reactively. Morning prayer interrupts this pattern. It slows you down long enough to choose intention over impulse. In prayer, you say, "Today, I will not carry what is not mine." This is a powerful declaration because much of what drains us does not belong to us in the first place. Other people's moods, expectations, disappointments, and unresolved issues often get placed on our shoulders without permission. When you carry what is not yours, you feel burdened without understanding why. Releasing these burdens in prayer is not avoidance, it is wisdom. You are acknowledging that some things are beyond your control and trusting God to handle what you cannot. You also say, "Today, I will not react to everything that demands my attention." Reaction is often emotional and rushed. Response is thoughtful and grounded. Not everything urgent is important, and not everything loud deserves a reply. When you begin the day with this mindset, you gain the freedom to pause. You create space between stimulus and response. That space is where peace lives. It is where discernment grows. It is where you stop being controlled by the noise around you. Giving God your first thoughts instead of your leftover energy changes everything. Many people give God what remains after worry, work, and stress have taken their share. By then, the mind is cluttered and the heart is tired. Morning prayer reverses this order. It says that faith comes first, not last. It says that before the world speaks, God speaks. This shift does not remove challenges, but it changes how you face them. When you start the day grounded in prayer, distractions do not magically disappear. Problems still exist. Responsibilities still demand attention. People still make requests. The difference is that these things lose their power to overwhelm you. You approach them from a place of stability instead of anxiety. You are no longer fighting fires all day. You are managing your energy with wisdom. Boundaries also protect your identity. Without them, you begin to define yourself by what you do for others rather than who you are. You feel valuable only when you are needed. Morning prayer reminds you that your worth is not earned through exhaustion. It is given. This truth anchors you when expectations rise and pressure increases. Spiritual boundaries help you recognize when to engage and when to step back. They teach you that rest is not laziness, and silence is not neglect. Even God rested after creation, not because he was tired, but because rest is part of design. When you honor rest, you honor the way you were created. As the day unfolds, you will still face moments that test your boundaries. Someone may push for more than you can give. A situation may trigger old patterns of overextending yourself. This is where the morning decision matters. What you chose in prayer becomes your reference point. Instead of reacting from guilt or fear, you return to intention. Setting spiritual boundaries before the day begins is an act of courage. It requires you to believe that your peace matters, that your limits are valid, and that God can work even when you say no. It requires trust that stepping back does not mean falling behind. In fact, it often means moving forward with greater clarity and strength. When you protect your mornings, you protect your mind. When you protect your mind, you protect your heart. And when your heart is guarded, your entire day is sharp. Led by purpose instead of pressure. Nature hates a vacuum, and the human mind is no different. When you remove something from your life, something else will rush in to take its place. This is why simply cutting off draining habits is never enough. If you eliminate anxiety without replacing it, worry will sneak back in. If you stop comparing yourself to others without filling that space with gratitude, insecurity will quietly return. Real transformation happens not just when you remove what drains you, but when you intentionally replace it with what restores you. Many people try to fight negative habits with willpower alone. They tell themselves to stop worrying, stop overthinking, stop being afraid. But the mind does not respond well to empty commands. It responds to redirection. When anxiety shows up, it is usually trying to protect you from uncertainty. Instead of fighting it, you replace it with trust. Trust says, I may not see the whole picture, but I believe I am not alone. Trust shifts the weight off your shoulders and places it where it belongs. It does not deny reality, it simply refuses to let fear define it. Comparison is another draining habit that quietly steals joy. It often begins the moment you look at someone else's life and measure it against your own. Social media has made this easier and more destructive than ever. You see highlight reels and assume they are full stories. You scroll and slowly begin to feel behind, inadequate, or unseen. Cutting off comparison is necessary, but unless you replace it with gratitude, the emptiness it leaves will be filled with resentment or self-doubt. Gratitude changes the lens through which you see your life. It reminds you that what you have is not insignificant, and where you are is not accidental. Fear is perhaps the most powerful drain of all. Fear of failure, fear of loss, fear of the unknown. It often disguises itself as caution or realism, but its true effect is paralysis. When you cut off fear, you must replace it with faith. Faith does not mean pretending everything will be easy. It means believing that even if things are hard, you will not face them alone. Faith gives courage to move forward when answers are incomplete. It allows you to take the next step without seeing the entire path. One of the most life-giving practices you can adopt in the morning is intentional silence. In a world that never stops talking, silence feels uncomfortable at first. Many people avoid it because silence forces them to confront their thoughts. Yet silence is where clarity is born. Even 2 minutes of stillness, without a phone, without noise, without distraction, can begin to reset the nervous system. Neuroscience confirms that brief moments of quiet can lower stress levels, improve focus, and regulate emotions. Silence creates space for the mind to settle and the heart to breathe. In those moments of stillness, you become aware of what you are carrying. You notice the tension in your body, the racing thoughts in your mind, the emotions you have been ignoring. This awareness is not meant to overwhelm you, it is meant to guide you. When you slow down, you give your nervous system permission to shift from survival mode into restoration. You remind your body that it is safe, that it does not need to stay on high alert all day. Another powerful life-giving practice is spoken prayer. There is something deeply grounding about hearing your own voice declare truth. Thoughts can be chaotic and easily interrupted, but spoken words carry weight. When you say, God, I trust you today, you are not just informing God, you are reminding yourself. You are interrupting fear with faith. You are choosing trust before doubt has a chance to take over. When you say, God, I release what I cannot control, you are acknowledging your limits. Control is exhausting because it is an illusion. We try to manage outcomes, people, and timelines that are beyond our reach, and the effort drains us. Releasing control through prayer does not mean giving up. It means letting go of what was never yours to hold. It frees mental space and emotional energy that can be used for what truly matters. Saying, God, I choose peace, is an act of intention. Peace is not always a feeling, sometimes it is a decision. You choose not to engage in every battle. You choose not to feed every anxious thought. You choose to respond rather than react. Spoken prayer reinforces these choices. It aligns your mind with your values and your actions with your faith. What you speak in the morning often becomes what you live out in the afternoon. If you begin the day declaring trust, gratitude, and peace, those qualities shape how you respond to challenges later. When stress shows up, you are less likely to panic. When conflict arises, you are more likely to remain grounded. When unexpected obstacles appear, you are more resilient. Your words create a framework for your day. Life-giving practices do not need to be complicated or time-consuming. Consistency matters more than length. 2 minutes of silence practiced daily is more powerful than an hour done once in a while. A simple spoken prayer repeated each morning can slowly reshape thought patterns that have been ingrained for years. Small practices, when repeated, create lasting change. Replacing draining habits also requires patience. The mind will naturally try to return to familiar patterns, even unhealthy ones. This is not failure, it is habit. Each time you choose trust over anxiety, gratitude over comparison, and faith over fear, you are building new pathways in your mind. Over time, these choices become easier. What once required effort begins to feel natural. When your mornings are filled with life-giving practices, your days become more intentional. You are no longer constantly recovering from stress. You are preparing for strength. You stop reacting to life and start engaging with it from a place of clarity. This shift does not remove difficulties, but it changes how you experience them. Replacing what drains you with what restores you is an act of self-respect and faith. It is choosing to nurture your spirit instead of neglecting it. It is believing that peace is not something you find later in the day, but something you cultivate at the beginning. And when you make that choice consistently, your mornings become a source of strength rather than survival.